I've had a lot of people ask me if there would ever be a day that I would bring back this old series just talking about the Muppets again. And honestly, I never really thought much about it, but it wasn't until this new Disney Plus series came out and suddenly those questions came back more frequently than ever. And honestly, again, I didn't really thought much about that either, but then I figured, you know what? Instead of talking about the episodes individually, why not just go back one more time and just talk about the whole show, or at least the whole season one that they got with the 6 episodes? So, you know what? Why don't we go and talk about the Muppets again, for old time's sake? Everybody, welcome back to a quick temporary revival of the Muppet Vlog, in which I will be discussing about the Disney Plus series Muppets Now. And to give you a quick little summary about Muppets Now, unlike the previous Muppet shows, or unlike the previous series related to the Muppets, this one is actually an unscripted series. Now, this is actually relatively short. As I am recording this, Muppets Now is actually brand new, and so far they only have one season with 6 episodes, and you never know if in the future they could actually make more episodes and have another season, or maybe this is just it and we're only gonna have these episodes and that's pretty much it. I don't know. But either way, you'll know how it is with the title itself, if I call it a Season 1 review or just a series review. But anyways, getting back into Muppets Now, this show is actually an unscripted series in which the Muppets provide their own YouTube-style segments. And what I mean by YouTube-style is that you're going to get some that are either vlogs, or sometimes they'll make up their own little show, like a little low-budgeted series, or they're going to do little interviews, or they would go and try to make their own specially produced shows, like a little cooking show with Swedish Chef, or even a Mythbusters-style science show with Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker, and many, many more. But the whole point of it is that there isn't really a script, and all the celebrity guests there and all the Muppets would have to go and improvise their way onto the whole show while discussing some of the little topics that maybe they would want to go and discuss about, or like provide some of their gags that they want to go and provide. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, now that we are familiar with Muppets Now, or at least the idea of Muppets Now, I'm sure a lot of you are pretty curious about my thoughts on it. What do I think about Muppets Now in general with the 6 episodes that they have provided to us so far? Well, before I do that, there is one thing that I need to do. Do you guys mind if I could take a minute to go and talk about my sponsor? Yes, this is brought to you by The Ridge, the best and possibly only wallet you'll ever need. Yes, it's literally the size of a credit card, and it's even 3 times smaller than my old wallet, but this thing can carry a lot, like the extra cash I got for sponsoring this, and even up to 12 cards at once. And this is made with some of the most durable material out there too, for long-lasting security and durability, with your choice of aluminum, titanium, and the one I have, carbon fiber, on top of choosing a variety of styles and colors. And the only thing harder than this wallet is finding any negative reviews about it. Seriously, I searched everywhere and it's just praises as far as the eye can see. And if you don't believe me, you could just try it out for 45 days and then send it back to them so that they could give you a full refund. So there's really nothing to lose here. And to make sure your old wallet doesn't hurt from this new wallet, you could go to ridge.com/animat and use the promo code animat to not only get a 10% discount, but also free shipping from anywhere in the world. Whew, that's a good excuse for a bathroom break. Okay, anyways, what are we here for? Oh, right, Muppets Now. What do I think? Okay, so, in terms of Muppets Now, honestly, I feel like Muppets Now is good. You know, it's just good. Not great, not anything special. I wouldn't really say it's terrible. It's just good. Okay, so here's the thing. One thing that I could start things off is that I can already say, in terms of the concept alone, with the presentation of how they are presenting the series, it's already a step up from the 2015 series, because at least with the whole concept of trying to make this whole browser or YouTube-based Muppet-style show, I feel like we are already getting back to its roots. Like, we're already one step ahead to going back to the Muppets that we all know and love, mainly because they're kind of using this modern aesthetic in order to go back into the old style of variety show that the Muppets are well known and well beloved for. So at least they're kind of slowly getting back to their roots, slowly getting back to their origins, and mainly slowly getting back to the reason why we actually do love the Muppets in the first place. They're not trying to be too experimental, they're not trying too hard to be modern by screwing with the format and stuff like that. So at the very least, it is nice to see that they are kind of going back to their roots with this. Now, I understand that there are some criticisms that some people might say that this will immediately make this show in particular dated because of the whole YouTube format, which that I can understand, but again, I'm not necessarily saying that this is a great thing. I'm saying that this is a step up. So this is at least a promise that in the future, if Disney would go and make more Muppet-related content, at least they know that they can be one step ahead to providing something that audiences would really love and bring back the Muppets in the way that we used to know them best in The Muppet Show, or maybe with some of the other previous shows like Muppets Tonight or the Jim Henson Hour and stuff like that. And by the way, speaking of the 2015 series, there is actually something cool with Muppets Now that I gotta say is like a nice little nod to some of the modern Muppet stuff. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that Muppets Now is like a spiritual successor to the 2015 series or anything like that, but it is noticeable that a lot of what the 2015 series has established did find its way a little bit onto Muppets Now, where they kind of accepted a little bit of some of the lore onto the Muppets and created what is how the Muppets are now, no pun intended. Like, and not just with the 2015 series, but also with some of the other modern stuff as well. Like, one great example is that Walter is sometimes prominent on this series, which is actually great to see him, like, really accepted in the Muppet family. And then there is also, like, you'll find that there are some little appearances from other characters as well, like Yolanda from the 2015 series actually does make an appearance in one of Miss Piggy's segments, and probably the best thing that ever came out of the 2015 series is actually the dynamic of Miss Piggy and Uncle Deadly. Like, have Uncle Deadly be Miss Piggy's assistant with her life in general. I think that is a great combination. I think they make a great duo. It worked out pretty well, and it's probably one of the strongest points in the 2015 series, and I'm glad to see that coming forward to Muppets Now. And I'm gonna get more into that a little later, but I will say those two are definitely a highlight to Muppets Now. Alright, but enough of that though, let's actually get into the actual content of Muppets Now. Let's actually dive into the segments that they would provide during the show. And honestly, after checking them all, and even though there isn't necessarily a whole lot of them, because in total there are just 6 different segments throughout the whole series that are scattered around in each different episodes, I have pretty much deducted that there are 2 different types of segments, 2 of which that will determine which ones are good and which ones are bad. Now, in order to go and determine which segments are either good or bad, you have to know what is their goal. You have to know what is their driving force, because the good segments would have their driving force be the personalities of their respected segments, while the bad segments would have the punchline be the driving force of their segments. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but what I'm saying is that if the main Muppet be the one that's actually in charge of the whole segment and have their personality dominate their entire bit there, then that is when the segments are at their best. That's when the segments become the most fun. That's when their comedy comes out the strongest, because it's regarding the characters and it's regarding the scenarios that they kind of tangled themselves in. And that's where you would have the most fun, just watching the whole segment all together. And that's where you can find the true spirit of the Muppets in this, because it's actually the Muppets that are taking over that segment. But then you would also have the bad segments that are run by the punchline of it, where they pretty much all set this up for this one massive joke, where technically it's not really about the Muppets themselves. It's not really about who they are interacting with. They're letting this one big joke try to go and carry the whole segment until the big punchline would suddenly appear, because it's not really about them. It's trying to establish this one big joke that never often really works, mainly because the joke is so easily predictable, where halfway through you already know what the joke is going to be. You already know what the big punchline is, and because of that, it never really pays off. But which ones, though, would I would go and consider to be the best or the worst ones? Which segments would I say are considered to be good, and which ones would I say are pretty bad? Well, that's actually pretty easy for me, because the best ones are easily the most memorable ones that I could think of. Like, immediately when I would think of Muppets Now, I would just go and start thinking about the best segments, which for me, I would go, first of all, the lifestyle with Miss Piggy. Those ones are absolutely hilarious, and just like I was talking about before, the dynamic between Miss Piggy and Uncle Deadly is just great throughout. Pretty much the whole thing is just dominated by Miss Piggy's personality, just trying to run this vlog about how to live your life, how to have fun. Like how to live your best life with Miss Piggy, and often not going as well as possibly planned. So those ones, I think they're just absolutely great, and they would provide some great laughs. And then there's also another one that I do like, Muppet Labs Field Test, and that one I feel like is pretty unique, and I'm surprised there isn't as much of these types of segments where, funny enough, there's also a little additional educational aspect of it, because this is mainly a Mythbuster style show with Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker, where they try to make science fun, where they would go and try to make some science experiments, and they would just go and present like some really crazy scenarios on it while explaining some basic concepts of science, whether it be about gravity or chemistry or sound or heat or anything like that. Like, you give that educational aspect of how some of these work, and then you would show them be really put to the test in a way that's just a lot of fun. It's pretty much a fun little tribute of not just Mythbusters, but also of those really popular science shows that you would find on YouTube, a little bit like the Slow-Mo Guys or something like that. So those ones are often pretty fun. But then there is one segment that I would have to say, not only is it the best, but I would actually consider it to be what Muppets Now should be. This is like the defining example of what Muppets Now should be and what all the other segments should look up upon. And I am talking about, believe it or not, this is probably even the biggest surprise of them all, is Pepe's Unbelievable Game Show. I honestly had my doubts about it at first, but with Pepe, oh my god, he dominated the whole segment. He made it absolutely hilarious the whole way through, and it really is just controlled by madness. It really is a segment where you never know what's going to happen. It's all unpredictable, it's all completely random, and it's all all run by Pepe, and you never know what he is going to do, and you never know how he's just gonna go and run his game show. It's honestly a lot of fun. And, oh my god, every time the segment would come up, I always know that it's just gonna be a blast. I don't know what to expect, but I know I'm gonna expect a lot of fun, and they really do deliver on that one. So honestly, great on you, Pepe, for having the best segment of Muppets Now. And you know, the funny thing is that even the low budget aesthetic of it all actually adds into it. It really does help out into the unpredictable aspect of Pepe's game show, where you never really know what's going to happen next. And you could tell that this is the kind of series where there really is no full control onto like what's going on. You don't have a team that's in control to make sure everything is in order. There is no order. There is only what Pepe says. But then you would have the bad segments, and I just want to go and clarify, I'm not saying that these are the ones that are really cringeworthy, that these are absolutely terrible. It's just that these are the ones that are a bit weaker than the ones that I have just talked about, and more often than not, they do come out with mixed results, actually. Like one thing that I could say is Mupp Close and Personal, where this is a segment that you would have the Muppets do a little interview with a celebrity, whether it be with RuPaul or Seth Rogen. And that's one where you would have some mixed results. Some can be a little bit dull and boring, where the jokes don't necessarily land as well. But then there are times when they can actually be pretty good, and they can actually turn out to be quite funny. Like, I will say, like, the examples that I brought up with RuPaul and Seth Rogen, those actually turned out to be pretty good, and there are actually some really funny lines that I did not expect and actually did give me a good laugh. And then there's also another one, Muppet Masters, and this is the one that actually stars Walter, and this is actually an example of one where it's actually driven by a punchline more so than it is driven by the personality, which is why it came out a little bit disappointing, and I did wish that Walter did deserve better for Muppets Now. I mean, it's great to see him in the show, it's great to see him actually do some stuff with the Muppets. It's just the kind of segment that he is in, it's just not necessarily all that great. I don't necessarily blame Walter himself for it, it's just that he's in a segment where it's mainly driven by the punchline, and it's not necessarily all that great. And even at that, like, yeah, there are a few funny moments, like they even made a reference to the Kermit meme where he's sipping tea, and like, yeah, he can have a bit of fun interactions with Uncle Deadly, but it really doesn't provide all that much. But then you would have Okie Dokie Cookin', which is Swedish Chef segment, and I'm gonna be very honest with you guys, I love the Swedish Chef. Whenever he's on the Muppet Show, he's absolutely hilarious. He's always fun to watch no matter what. But to be very honest, in Muppets Now, holy crap, are Swedish Chef segments just terrible. They are not funny whatsoever. They are so repetitive, and for some reason, this is the segment that appears, or at least almost appears the most. Like, almost every single episode has a Swedish Chef number, and they're all the same thing, and they're all unfunny, because they all repeat the same joke. It's basically the Swedish Chef, and he is paired up with this one celebrity guest chef, and they have to go and compete by making this dish. And all in the middle, you got this host, which is kind of a new Muppet, which is a turkey named Beverly. And they pretty much go and do the same thing, where you got the celebrity chef making something really good, and then you got the Swedish chef trying to do the same kind of dish, but really messing up the recipe and just doing his own crazy shenanigans. It's all the same punchline. It's all the same joke, and this is possibly the worst moment in the Swedish Chef's history. It's just, every time I would see the segment pop up, it's always a moment I'm like, oh god, no, really? Yeah, and honestly, I'm really sorry to say this, but yeah, like the Swedish Chef bit is just absolutely terrible. I don't know why this series has quite an obsession with this segment in particular. I don't know if maybe it's just because like the celebrities just want to work with a Swedish chef or something like that. But it's just absolutely, they're just not fun, and honestly, they almost ruin the entire show altogether with the fact that they use it so frequently. I mean, come on, let's be honest, the Swedish Chef deserves much better than that. But I just would like to say though, and this is just to repeat a little bit of what I said earlier, even though I would say that these segments are good and these segments are bad, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all around good or that they're all around bad. They do provide a little bit of mixed results, and it does happen when some of the good segments, they would have some weaker parts than others, or you would actually have some bad segments where there are some stronger moments than others. So, of course, that's why you would have kind of a massive mixed bag. But, you know, it is actually very good to see that at least with the good ones, they can be very, very enjoyable. And at least with the bad ones, I wouldn't necessarily say that they are bad, with the exception of the Swedish Chef segments. It's just that they come out with mixed results. But before I go and give my overall thoughts onto the series, there is one more major thing that I would like to go and talk about. And this is possibly the most talked about aspect of Muppets Now. The one thing that has really divided people with this series in particular. Now, some may say that it could be a little bit minor, but man, can people not stop talking about this. Alright, let's talk about Kermit the Frog. So, in case you guys didn't know, Steve Whitmire, the guy who has performed Kermit the Frog for more than 25 years ever since Jim Henson passed away, was actually fired from his position in 2017. And I think Disney might have had a bit of an influence on the firing of Steve Whitmire, but ultimately, the main person who wanted to get rid of Steve is actually Brian Henson. And his reason for that is because apparently Steve Whitmire is actually very egotistical. Like, apparently having the role of Kermit the Frog really got to his head a bit, and it did result in a bit of shakeup during production of some Muppet performances. And from there, the only regret that Brian Henson had when firing Steve Whitmire was just the fact that he didn't do it anytime sooner. So from there, he had to be replaced, and that's where we would bring in Matt Vogel. And Matt Vogel, from there, he had already performed with the Muppets and even performed on Sesame Street for several years at that point, and even right now, he is kind of considered a Jim Henson veteran, where now he is the current performer of beloved characters such as Big Bird, the Count, Floyd, Camilla the Chicken, Uncle Deadly, New Zealand, and probably his most notable performance in this case is Constantine, the evil Russian doppelganger of Kermit in the 2014 movie Muppets Most Wanted. And now, he is the one who's going to be taking the helm of performing Kermit the Frog. And this is where you would find a lot of backlash and a lot of criticism from Muppets Now. Probably the biggest thing people have complained the most about is the fact that Kermit sounds different. That Kermit's voice is not the same as how it was as either during the time of Steve Whitmire or even during the time of Jim Henson. And I'm sure a lot of people might want to know, what do I think of this? And personally, I actually might be in the minority and think that he's fine. He's actually pretty good. And yes, I do understand that his voice is completely different, and that is going to take some time to get used to. But one thing I do want to say right now regarding the criticism of his voice, I've heard a lot of people say that, oh, why don't you find a voice actor that sounds like Kermit? Why don't you get someone to replace Matt Vogel, to replace Kermit's voice at least, where he'll just perform and someone else will do the voice? Well, that's really not how it works. works. I understand that there are some exceptions and that there are some productions that actually do that. Some Jim Henson productions, in fact, that would do that. Case in point, that is exactly what they would do with, I believe, the Dark Crystal series on Netflix. But in this case here with the Muppets, you can't really do that because you're not handling characters for a show, you're handling personalities. With the Muppets, they really are a different case because they're kind of like celebrities in a way. So you can't just get someone to be a puppeteer and then someone else to be the voice. You gotta get someone who is well trained in all that together. You gotta be, you know, honestly, it's the puppeteering that is a lot more valuable than the voice. Someone who can actually puppeteer the character in order to really bring them to life. And that's where Matt Vogel's strengths actually do appear, because let's be honest, Matt Vogel is a very talented Jim Henson style puppeteer. I mean, case in point, he's the guy who is currently doing Uncle Deadly, and I mean, Uncle Deadly is absolutely phenomenal, especially with Muppets Now, and it will take some time for people to go and adjust to this new Kermit. And I mean, yeah, I get it, there are some people who would go and complain that, oh, Kermit doesn't feel the same as before. You know, like, Kermit's personality here doesn't feel like the same Kermit that we all know and love, and I mean, that is true, but technically, I would blame more the direction of what the series is trying to do in Muppets Now more so than Matt Vogel's performance. They're just putting Kermit in scenarios that we wouldn't normally see him do, or it would seem more out of character. Like, they want to try portraying Kermit as a photobomber. That's not necessarily something I blame Matt Vogel for. That's more just the direction or like producing Muppets Now. So it's more like either the director or the producer that would be more to blame if ever Kermit would feel a bit out of character. But in terms of Kermit himself, and by the way, I just want to mention, we don't really get a whole lot of Kermit, by the way. Like, yeah, you do get like little bits and pieces. Like, at the most, Kermit would just appear like just before the Muppet Lab segment, where he would just tell people to just, whatever you see on television or whatever you see on that segment, do not try this at home and stuff like that. But with Kermit, however, like with some of the pieces that you do see, there are a lot of times, or more often than not, I actually do see the Kermit that I do remember. Yes, he does sound a lot more different than he does before. I mean, that's going to be something that will require getting used to at this point, but I still see a bit of that Kermit that I remember growing up with, rather it be from the original Muppet Show or from some of the stuff that has been provided by Steve Whitmire. Like, I can still see the same Kermit remember watching as a child, so there really isn't that big of a difference. And honestly, in terms of the performance, Matt Vogel does manage to do the job well. And yeah, maybe I'm in the minority on this, but I do support Matt Vogel's Kermit, honestly, because yeah, there is still some of that Kermit that is still true to the Kermit that we all know and love. And by the way, just to further prove my point, I want you to go and check out this one video that's on YouTube, actually. And this is like part of like calming people down and to make them feel better during the 2020 pandemic and stuff like that. But there's actually a video out there where it is the Matt Vogel Kermit, and it's simply just him just on his lily pad or just like in his swamp area where he's with his banjo and he would sing Rainbow Connection. Like, go and watch that, and you tell me if that's not the same Kermit that you remember growing up with. I mean, seriously, I think honestly, just on that video, it really does prove that Matt Vogel knows what he's doing, he knows who Kermit is, and he will do his best to deliver the Kermit that we all know and love, even if it will require to have him do things that would be unnatural for Kermit, but again, that would be the fault of like the producing and the directing and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, honestly, like I said, I may be in the minority on this, but honestly, I do like this Kermit. I'm definitely going to miss the Steve Whitmire Kermit, but I think I can adjust well to the Matt Vogel Kermit. Okay, so now with that out of the way, there is only one question remaining. What would I rate Muppets Now? If I would go and give it a score, what would I go and give it? And I have given some thought about it, and honestly, I would go and give it a 7 out of 10. Again, this is not a great series, and for sure, not all the segments are going to land well. But this is one of those shows that when it does something good, it does it extremely well. And there are some segments that can provide some great entertainment and have given me some great laughs. And of course, it does feature a lot of the great personalities that we all know and love, rather it be with Miss Piggy, with Uncle Deadly, with Pepe, and many others. And there are a few other characters that they would have their opportunities to appear, rather it be in like the mid segments with Scooter trying to run the show all together, which by the way, I will say those segments are actually pretty cute. They're not, they're not like among the best, but like there haven't really been some that are like full on terrible. They're just cute and they are pretty fun seeing Scooter on his computer trying to maintain and run the show all together while conflicted with some of the obstacles in his way, whether it be with interacting with Statler and Waldorf, or Fozzie, or Robin, or Kermit, or what have you, or even like with Chip the IT guy, or even Animal, by the way. But anyways, that's just like my little piece on that. Yeah, as I was saying with Muppets Now, whenever they're great, but it does come with some mixed results as well, where there are some segments that they can have a few funny moments at times, or they can be just flat out dull because they're trying to desperately push a punchline that doesn't even work in the first place. So at the very least, it can provide some entertainment, and it does provide some long-awaited charm of the Muppets that has been needed for quite a long time, and honestly, it's been a while since we haven't really gotten it yet. Now, in terms of my recommendation, I would say that this is a pretty good casual watch. I mean, this is a short series so far. We've only gotten 6 episodes, and I mean, it's worth just checking out on the side, just to get a good laugh or two in the meantime. This is not necessarily the big Muppet comeback that we've all been waiting for, but, for this, this is kind of a good, placeholder in the meantime. At least, it's something that can give us a good, satisfying Muppet fill where we can have a good laugh over the Muppet shenanigans that do ensue in the show. So at least it is something. It's not necessarily the best thing that we have got in terms of the Muppets, or even the best thing we've got in terms of the Muppets in recent years, but at least it is enjoyable. It does serve its job, and it does provide some entertainment, so I can't really hate it. So yeah, just like I said, it's not really great, but it's good. It's entertaining, and it is pretty fun. And that should be it for this quick little revival of the Muppet vlog with me talking about Muppets Now. So I would just like to cap this off by saying thank you all so much for watching. And regarding if I would ever go and do more of these again, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see if there will be more crazy Muppet adventures that are worth talking about. So with that said, until next time, see you later, dudes!